everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And we're really excited today. We are here to talk about the latest Sundance Film Festival. It's so much fun. I saw a record number of films, and we'll talk about them. And I am joined today by friend and fellow film critic Alex Billington. And Alex, thank you so much for coming and talk with us.
Yeah, of course. I'm super excited to be
Yeah.
here. Um, yeah, I'm ready. I'm
So I
ready to
think
dive in.
Yes. So I think this is your first time on Rachel's Reviews. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about
Sure.
how you got started in the world of films and film criticism.
Sure. I'm honored to be on this. I've known you for a long time and I've always been like, she's gotta invite me on sometime. So here I am finally.
Yeah.
Um, no, I think like you, like everyone, I was a movie nerd growing up. I like my dad was always showing me everything, and my brother and I would, pop in any VHS we could. And eventually I started first showing when I was in university. And it's just it started out as like a movie blog in a very basic sense of like blogging about camping out for movies. Actually, the first one I was camping out for was like Superman, I think it's Returns with Brandon Routh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like nearly 20 years ago, and it's like just kind of like actually like the posters still online, and I'm like, please don't read them. They're really bad. They're really like they're also like hardcore nerd, like here we are camping for this movie that is actually gonna be pretty bad. Um and then over the years, the site has kind of developed, and for a long time we were doing movie news. I don't really do movie news anymore. Now I've kind of just settled into just being, well, I still am a movie nerd, uh, but uh,
Uh-huh.
professionally now, so I get to
Yeah.
do it as my job. And I go to film festivals all over the world. And Sundance is kind of like my jam. It was the very first festival I ever went to. And my brother at the time had lived he still lives in Salt Lake City. So my very first Sundance, I
Yeah.
drove from Colorado, where I was living, 8 hours to Salt Lake City. I stayed on his couch and would drive up every single day to Park City, which was a really bad idea, but I did it anyway just because I had to. And it's been like it's funny because through ups and downs, through pandemic and everything else, it's like still my key festival. I have to be
Uh-huh.
there. I have to go. I
Yeah.
have to watch what I can. I have so many like life-changing memories at Sundance. And I'm glad that First Showing, which is my site, firstshowing.net, is able to still keep going and keep me not only like passionate and interested in things, but able to do this as my job
Do you remember
participate
your
in the community.
first Sundance? What was your first one that
It
you went
would
to?
it was 2007, so it would have been
Okay.
I think that was 500 Days of Summer, which was the one that like
Oh, wow.
that like
Yeah.
that premiere, that moment.
Yeah.
It actually had begun before that because before I even started the website, the big one was Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember that had come out of Sundance. I had heard all the buzz, and everyone was going crazy for it. And they like did this tour where they like showed it up in Denver somewhere. So I had to go like drive and find this one theater to come watch it. And that was kind of actually what started me thinking like one day I gotta go to Sundance to follow up where Napoleon came from, and then eventually led to my first time in 2007.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Wow.
I think like a lot of people, I didn't even get a press badge. They didn't approve me. They were like, "Who are you?" This was at the time where like blogs were kind of this dirty part of the movie world, and they were like,
Yeah.
"We don't want you at this festival." And I had to like, buy tickets, like using my brother's address to get the Salt Lake City discount, and all these funny things to eventually, like a couple years later, get a press
Okay.
badge.
Well, so that's what's like because you were in town for this last trip. You were here for quite a while.
Yeah,
For just the
my
festival, right?
yeah, my family
Yeah.
lives in Salt Lake now, so I'm
Ah,
usually there
yeah.
to hang
Okay.
out with them, and then
Yeah. Because I
it's
saw
also
you at the Wolfman
yeah,
screening.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that was fun. I was wondering about that. I was like, where does he live? What's he?
Yeah, I come in every year to see my family and spend time with
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, that's another good memory is that I think it's 2007 or 2008. All of us came to Sundance one year, and it was the year of Cloverfield. And we
Okay.
all had to convince Paramount to let us into the press screening because we had come to Sundance and they were press screening on Thursday before it opened on Friday because they didn't want to
Uh-huh.
spoil anything before that. So like
Right.
everyone had to figure out how to go to the Salt Lake City press screening of this film and see it. And then the craziest thing, I posted this on Twitter recently, is that 2 days later we were walking on Main Street and we saw Rob from Cloverfield, who had like I guess they just wanted him to be there at the festival. I think he was in some tiny
Yeah.
role in some film, and we were like, it's the Cloverfield guy. That's another. So I have a lot of great like Salt Lake City, Utah memories too. It's not just the
Uh,
festival. It's like
yeah.
it's now a part of my life too to be there, and
I
good
love
time.
that. Yeah, the first time I went to Sundance was 2016,
Okay.
but I only saw a couple movies that year. And of course, Sing Street was like
Ah, yeah, yeah,
epic. And
yep, yep.
that, I mean, that's just, it's in the conversation for like my favorite movies, like ever.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah. Oh yeah.
love that movie. And seeing it was just so exhilarating.
Yeah.
Like, wow, something so pure and lovely and great
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
So that was a big inspiration to me. And I had such a fun time. And that year, the reason why I went that year was because I had started writing for rotoscopers, which I
Mm,
still write for them. I occasionally I posted all of my interviews, my animator interviews,
mm,
there this last festival, and so I'm still associated with them. And by the time I just kind of started, and there was this animated film called like Snow Time or Snow Day or something like that. It was a Canadian French animated movie, and they needed somebody to interview
mm.
the people at Sundance. And so I went and did that. That was one of my first interviews that I did, and I just really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. And so I just started actually attending in
Mm.
real every year, and I got approved as press in 2021.
Mm.
So when it
Cool.
was yeah,
It was a virtual, right?
when it was virtual. And then I got rejected every year. So I was like, I don't know, they must have not been happy with I can't remember if I was approved for 2020. Anyway, I think I might have been for 2020 because it was like 2 years that and I did these animator interviews.
Mm.
And I thought that there was something like real and concrete that I like added. Who else is interviewing the animators, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly, exactly.
And so I was so surprised when for 3 years in a row they denied my press, which was very discouraging and frustrating. And I still don't really understand because I feel like I covered a lot of films, and I did the interviews, but they did. And so this year I was so surprised that they
Yeah,
actually did approve me as press.
yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I've always gotten the locals pass. Even this year I got the
Mm.
locals pass, and the locals pass is, in my opinion, by far the best way to fest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just so much better because so 2019 I didn't get the locals pass, and
Mm.
so I was just I got the grand pass that year, and I got 10 pack, and it
Mm.
was way
Oh, yeah.
not as good,
Yeah, exactly.
way not
Tickets
as
are so
good.
hard to get nowadays. It's crazy.
Hard to get, and you had to like guess what movies are going to be good and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
would you
yeah,
know. And
yeah.
so like the quality of your experience is so much worse
Mm.
when you have the pass. You can wait and hear something that day, like, oh, this is
Mm.
getting buzz, people are talking about it, it's good. And then you could even an hour before, like, it's
Yeah,
just so much better, like both in the quality of the movies you see and the quality of the experience, because you just walk right up, click, you're in, done.
yeah.
And so it's I always tell people, like, in my opinion, it is well worth the investment. I
Mm.
just the quality of the movies that you see and the quality of just the experience alone. I just think it's just so much better.
Yeah. This makes me think that because a lot of these screenings that you go to are in Salt Lake City too. On the topic of them moving, I actually really want them to stay in Salt Lake City. I think the fest would do so much
Mm,
better if they stuck to Salt Lake City. They added more venues and they turned it into a Salt Lake City event. Like get out of Park City, get out of the
yeah.
craziness. It's just
I
like
can see that
yeah,
because
why
this was the
not?
first year that I've really spent any time in Park City because again I haven't been approved as press, so and I have the pass, so why go to Park City?
Yeah,
And because I did have press, I went and it is such a pain up there
yeah.
trying
Ugh.
because there's no parking and so you have to like park at the junctions and then take a bus and it's just a pain up
Yeah,
there
it is.
Park
It is.
City. It's
It
a
is.
and but I don't know what was going on this year because they only had two venues in Salt Lake. That was
Yeah,
wild.
it
And
was.
they raised the price of the locals pass. It was 600 before and now it's 675 this year for way less venues.
Yeah.
Way less. And so that was kind of annoying.
The crazy thing is that the individual ticket prices are like I think like $35 right now.
$35.
Which
Yeah.
is like when I first went, I think it was like $12, like
Yeah.
a reasonable ticket price.
Yeah.
This is like the funniest thing is I went to see this film Peter Hujar's Days, and it's like a 74-minute film. And I'm like, did all these people just pay $35 for a 74-minute
Yeah.
film that you may not even like in the end?
Right.
It's kind of
And
bonkers.
and
Like
it's the same for the virtual. The virtuals are $35 as well.
I know they're trying, I guess, trying to make
Which
money, but it's just like this is for a festival that should be accessible. I agree. I think there was an article in one of the newspapers in Salt Lake about this, but for a festival that should be accessible to everyone, that is meant to be featuring indies that are like a low budget things made by people,
yeah.
$35 is not acceptable. Like it really
Yeah.
isn't,
No,
you
it
know?
really is not. And then also the I don't know what was going on because I swear 80% of the screenings at Rose Wagner were documentaries. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
by far overwhelmed by documentaries. And I like documentaries, but like if you're only going to have two venues and I've heard even at just like a huge portion of the Salt Lake screenings were documentaries this year.
Hmm,
It was bonkers.
weird.
And so it was frustrating because like it used to be that if you had the pass, you would have several opportunities to see a
Mm,
particular film
mm,
because you might see it at the Gateway, or you might see it at the Grand, or you might see it,
mm,
and or Rose Wagner. And in this year, it you a lot of them weren't even showing in Salt Lake, and if they were, there was one
mm,
shot. So if you
mm.
had other commitments or other things or another movie you wanted to see, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's frustrating.
I think the biggest example of this to me was Train Dreams. It screened like once on
Yep.
Saturday at Rose Wagner the very first weekend, and I was thinking
Yep.
like, oh, I'll come down and see it in Salt Lake. Not at all the whole festival in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I even think it had like two
Yep.
more Park City screens, and that was it. And I'm just thinking
Yep.
like, this is a film that ended up being a favorite for so many people,
Yeah.
and they barely showed it. Like,
Yeah. And
I
well,
don't get it.
yeah. And Wallace Island is another one that
Mm,
it screened one time. I think at Rose Wagner. I couldn't see it then because of other commitments, and so I ended up buying a ticket and seeing it at the library in Park City.
oh wow.
Yeah, because they had that additional screening at 8:30 in the morning, which was
Oh
bonkers.
wow. Wow. You
But
went up to
yeah,
Park City at 8:30 in the
yes,
morning.
I
Wow,
did.
that is commitment. That is true. You deserve
Ridiculous.
the appreciation and respect for doing
It
that.
was absurd, but nevertheless, I did, and I did take an Uber because I was like, I am not going all. I'm not going to park at the
Yeah.
junction.
Yeah,
I'd have to get up at like 5 a.m.
yeah, it's
in
crazy.
order to coordinate all that. And at least like if I can take an Uber, I can just get dropped off at the library. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of insane that there isn't any public parking of any kind, even to they I think it's kind of crazy that that fresh market doesn't just sell their spots. They could make so much money. They could probably sell for like $80. They could
Yeah.
probably sell
Yeah.
tickets.
I bet they could
Yeah, I bet people would pay $80.
just to park there all
But
day.
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I that in that sense, I can see why why they might consider going somewhere else because that Park City
Mm,
is really
exactly.
frustrating.
exactly. And
up
this is my whole
there.
point. Like, I even think there's more venues than they've used in the past in Salt Lake City. Just like you could just do it around the city, find cool theaters, find cool venues, find cool
Yeah.
places, and it would be a
Well,
rad
it's
festival.
such
It
a
really
shame.
would.
I don't know what happened with the Gateway because they still were working with Megaplex at the in
Mm,
Park City location. So I don't know what happened there because that was so nice.
yeah. And a real
Uh,
movie theater,
yeah,
real seats, like an actual place to go see. Yeah, yeah.
it was so nice because like in a hot ticket movie, they had like three different uh showings of it at the same
Mm,
time,
mm.
and then they even had the panel like short circuited in.
Oh, wow,
So
cool.
yeah, so it was really good. So who knows? I'm sure there's all kinds of drama behind the scenes, but
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it did feel like things were very poorly organized, very poorly thought out this year. And I felt like the slate in general was weaker than in years past.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
It's interesting because it's like this is exactly what I wanted to talk about with you. Is like as much as I have been a hardcore fan of the festival for 2 decades, there's so many criticisms I have about it, and there's so much I want to
yeah,
like you've brought up, like this isn't working, something's weird, something's off. I still love going, I still love the films. Please give me a press badge.
yeah,
Don't let
please.
like I'm allowed to criticize these things, and
Yes.
I think that's important. Actually, I've written about it a few times on my site where I'm like film critics seem to be afraid of criticizing the festival and actually
Right.
bringing up issues that I think are very valid and important issues
Yeah.
that the festival needs to hear. And it can't just be simply, oh, I loved being there. There's feedback that is worthwhile from people like you
Yeah.
and I,
Well,
in addition to the films.
people are afraid of losing access. And
Yeah.
as somebody who lost access for 3 years, it's it's not worth it. Like you have to be you have to be real, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Or what are you doing? You're just wasting everyone's time if you're phoning, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
So,
Plus, I really do think the festival can get back on the right track. I mean, you said
uh-huh.
like this is actually something you talked about earlier with Sing Street too. I was like, there's been this era of incredible moments at
Yeah.
Sundance. I don't think just because it's going through this tough time, it can't get back to those glory days. It can't get back to like that kind of Sing Street experience where you're like, I just like
Yeah.
the other time that happened to me was Call Me by Your Name. I came out of that and I was like on a
Yeah.
cinema high, and I was just like, this is what I come here for. So I think they can get back on track. I don't
Yeah.
know how long it will take. I don't even know what they need to do. I hope it's not moved to Cincinnati, but I do think there is still a Sundance like vibe and warmth that can continue
Yeah.
despite these very valid criticisms
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever they're
Yeah.
going
It's true
through.
when you see something that just inspires you, that makes you excited. I mean, last year I did have a few of those moments. Real Pain that
Yeah,
ended
yeah.
up in my
Yeah.
top 10 of the year.
Yeah.
Ghost Light
Oh,
ended
beautiful
up in
film.
my top 10 of the year. I don't think anything this year will end up on my top 10 of the year.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. But anyway, let's dive in. Let's talk about some of the movies. So um so my favorite you actually have some pretty high scores for a bunch of films.
Whoa, that's a whole other conversation for a different podcast. I'm like a very generous star giver. I'm like, oh, this,
Sorry.
that. People look, yeah, because on Letterboxd, I got a rate high, and then I like look at my friends and they're like, I love that movie, 3.5 stars. I'm like, did you really love it?
Well, that's so true, especially in the world of rom-coms. Like it
Yeah,
makes me crazy. Like there's just a certain degree of genre bias when it comes to romantic comedies that will just give it people will be like, this is a perfect romantic comedy. 2 stars.
You're like, didn't you like it?
Like,
I even read this whole article about how like people refuse to give stars and they'll just give the like heart rating or not, like heart or not.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I get what you're doing, which is escaping this,
Yeah.
like what kind of stars, but I'm also like just give it a rating, whatever.
The only time I don't give ratings is actually for the TV movies because I
Okay,
just
okay.
feel like there's such a different
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
they're just so different that I don't want people being like, how could you give 3 stars to this Hallmark movie and 3 stars to whatever? It's like
Yeah.
they're different. But yeah, I'm it and it really if you don't think that there's genre bias out there, then you're not paying attention because it is
True.
absolutely a thing,
Yeah.
and very frustrating for those of us that are romantic comedy fans. Um, like I can't imagine what it would feel like if you are a Nancy Meyers or another rom-com director, and they're right out of the gate there's a huge population of film goers and certainly critics who are immediately going to dismiss your film no matter what. Like you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
you
yeah,
could literally make a perfect movie for your genre, and there's a whole bunch of people who would they don't care,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's so frustrating. But
yeah.
anyway, so my favorite of the movies, I saw 32 films, which was my record before. The most I'd seen is 28
Mm,
because I had the virtual that really helped me a lot.
nice.
But my favorite of all the movies that I saw was Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Oh, great, great.
Yes, I mean I'm a sucker for musicals. I really love musicals for the most part. Although last year tested that
Yeah, there were a
belief.
couple. Yeah.
Yeah. But this one I can understand why it wouldn't be for everybody because it does mix a
Mm,
lot of tones
mm,
and things. But I really liked it. I thought it was fresh. I thought it was exciting. I
mm,
thought the performances were quite good. I thought the fantastical sequences were really bright and colorful and beautiful and I just thought it was exciting. I enjoyed it.
yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I wrote in my review that the performance from Tonatiuh, as Molina was like my favorite performance of the whole festival. He's
Yeah.
phenomenal in this, and like not a newcomer. Apparently, he's in Carry On. I was like, oh, he is. He's like the baseball cap guy. So I'm
Were
watching
you at
this.
the premiere?
Yeah, with Jennifer Lopez.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So you was he there
he
at the
was. He
premiere?
was. He
Okay,
was
I think I
really well.
saw
Like,
him at the
yeah,
festival.
he
I think
was
I saw
really.
him.
I want to meet this guy. Like, I just want to hug him and be like, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I'm also like, this is actually one of the moments where I felt this is his big moment from
Yeah, oh
Sundance. Like,
yeah.
this is the moment that makes someone at Sundance. And I'm with you. I thought it was really, really beautiful and really well done and really, like captivating, actually.
Yeah.
Like not, I had no idea what to expect. I haven't seen the original. I don't know the book. I don't know anything about it. I walked in like completely fresh, being like, I don't know what I'm about to
Yeah.
see. And it really, really impressed
Like
me.
I
Yeah,
I am sure that they cut a lot out of this musical,
I
the
bet.
Broadway
Yeah.
musical. Because it is a little light on songs for
Yeah.
a musical. There's long stretches with no songs. And but I don't know this Broadway musical well. As a theater critic, I don't know this one that well. I've never seen it.
Mm,
And the only thing I really know about it is Cheetah Rivera was for the dancing was
okay, okay.
well known. That's what you hear about it because of the Spider Woman, the dancing for Cheetah
Mm,
Rivera. But as far as it's not one of those shows that has like, oh, these iconic songs. Oh, you're
mm,
waiting, like with Wicked, of course. You're waiting for those big songs. It's just not that kind of musical. So in a way that's sort of refreshing because it just allowed it almost felt like an original
mm,
work as opposed to an adaptation
yeah. And
in
I
a way.
like, I, I
Yeah, I
agree. I
haven't
agree.
I haven't seen the 80s film either. Uh or the yeah, like I said, I haven't seen the Broadway musical. So it's just it felt I think extra fresh because I had
Mm,
none of that going into it.
yeah. Yeah. And I like the musical sequences also in the sense that um they added Diego Luna and Tonatiuh's characters into them.
Mhm.
Like they start out being like, oh, that was this guy, and then they put them in
Yeah.
so that you're like it is this great fantastical intermingling of what you're seeing outside in the prison brought into the musical moments and the interplay between them is so great. I really enjoyed it too. I was
Yeah.
actually frustrated by people who gave it a negative review. I was like, just enjoy something. This movie will get to you, and you'll
Yeah.
have it. If you open your heart and open your mind, you should enjoy. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
not the best movie ever, like you said, but not on your top 10 of the year, but
Yeah.
something good, something fresh. It's enjoyable.
I think it could have been fun if they had found a way to involve Jennifer Lopez's character in the
Yeah,
modern sequences as
I
well,
was
like make
wondering
her
that.
like a
Yeah,
cafeteria worker, just something like that, and be like kind of thing might have been fun.
that would have been cool too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
but it was good. So my second favorite of the festival was Deaf Presidents Now.
Mm,
Was my second favorite. I really enjoyed it. This Davis Guggenheim, he knows what he's doing.
yeah,
He is very good at putting together these kind of talking heads documentaries and making them compelling and engaging. I mean, he's done it time and time again with, of course, going all the way back to the Al Gore PowerPoint movie with Me and Truth. It's like, how did you make that interesting? I have no idea.
yeah, yeah.
But that but then Waiting for Superman was so excellent.
Mm,
The Michael J. Fox documentary last year, excellent. He's just really good at what
yeah.
and he does a great job with this.
Yeah, I loved it too. I really loved it. I
Yeah.
was I had come in knowing that Crip Camp a couple years ago had also played at Sundance. Was also one of my favorites, and I was kind of thinking
Yeah.
like this is going to be something like that where it's not just a story of what's going on at this university, but it's a story of activism in a way that like it's one of these few documentaries where
Yeah.
it actually ends, and I'm like, we can change things, which is I
Yeah.
know the whole point. I wanted to see more beyond. Like I actually would have seen more of this university. I wanted a whole like every chapter from then on. But I like
Yeah.
how they ended it this note being like they achieved change. Here's how they did it. Here's what they did. You
Yeah.
feel moved and inspired by these kids. I love. I'm glad they had interviews with all of them because listening to them modern day talk about what they did back then was so much fun, so exciting. It was great. It's really great
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So next I have the Ballad of Wallace Island.
Mm.
And this is charming, really enjoyable. I do think that the Charlie guy got
It's a
like
little
a
annoying, right?
little
Yeah,
much
yeah,
after a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was kind of like, okay, he's getting a little grating, but overall, very sweet, very, very fun movie, nice music. It felt like a John Carney movie that's not a John Carney movie. It
Yeah,
had that
yeah, yeah,
energy, I think.
yeah.
So it comes to theaters next month. It's gonna, I think if it's marketed correctly, I think it could do quite well.
Yeah, probably.
I don't see
You know
why
what?
not.
You mentioned John Carney. One of my friends told me a theory he had about it, which is that his theory is that the couple that's in it that is involved in this plot with
Uh-huh.
this guy on the
Uh-huh.
island is actually the them or the director or whatever trying to reference the real couple from once that
Ah,
was together and was a real couple back then and then broke up. And he wants that once couple to come back together, and that's what he's trying to reference in this. Even though this is a whole, quote unquote fictional story, wink, wink. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is John Carney related. But yeah, I also agree with you. I was like, I wish there were subtitles because there was a certain point where I was like, I don't even understand this guy's jokes anymore. I'm so annoyed
yeah.
at his like quips about everything. I was like, oh man, it's and I know that is his character. I know there's a point to it. I know it works with the story. I thought his little romantic thing was so sweet, but I was like,
Yeah.
this
It's all
dude is
about
a real
calibration.
wacky man. Yeah,
It's all about
yeah, yeah,
calibration. I mean,
yeah.
that's the thing that was so brilliant about A Real Pain last year is that
Mm,
like that Kieran
great.
Culkin character could have been very
Yeah,
annoying,
yeah.
but like they used him just enough and they gave us just enough breaks and they have like a scene with him literally getting slapped at a certain point. So like there was just enough to like, okay, that it worked. And that's a tricky thing to do with a character like that,
Yeah, of course.
so but it's a crowd pleaser. It's a winner. So
Yeah.
I think people, it's so interesting because there's always these movies out of Sundance. So you're like, there's something some people that people could do with this. This
Mm,
has so much potential. Like, of course, Hitman last year, like that could have been such a big hit,
hmm
but because of
hmm
stupid Netflix, like
Yeah.
just nothing. You did
Yeah.
nothing with it, and it just is so frustrating. But even
My
like even you have some studios, and this wasn't Netflix, but like just how badly Neon bungled Robot Dreams.
Yeah.
that here you have this incredibly charming, crowd pleasing movie and you have literally 4 months with not a
Mm,
single animated film at the beginning of the year. And they had it like it was nominated. They even had Oscar momentum. It just makes no sense to me.
mm.
Like there was nothing from the duck movie I can't Migration. There was nothing from Migration all the way until Kung Fu Panda 4.
Oh wow.
Nothing. It just makes no sense. So like these studios, they just it's just they sometimes I don't understand their strategy behind these independent films sometimes. It's so confusing.
It is. My least favorite thing that they do is when they'll buy a Sundance film and they'll release it at next year's Sundance. So not only can everyone who liked it at last year's Sundance not really talk about it because they're covering the current Sundance, but
Yeah,
they get drowned out by the current Sundance.
right.
And I always wondered, like, why do they do this? I have kind of realized it, I mean, who knows what it is. My belief is that their strategy seems to be because everyone's talking about the current Sundance, we can offer audiences at home a last year's Sundance film. But I'm like, does that actually work? Do people really sit down and think, oh, that's what I'll do, and therefore I watch last year's
Yeah.
film? I don't know. It's a weird strategy to me. Like,
Well, and sometimes films never get released from
yeah,
Sundance.
yeah.
Ever. Like I always talk about my beloved Butterflies movie. This was also I think 2018.
Butterflies?
That
Which one?
it won a jury prize. I don't even know why it never got a release, but
Oh,
it's from this. It was a Turkish film. It was so good. About these people that they find out their siblings they didn't know. They find out their dad's funeral. And the big thing in the movie is that they have these chickens that ate this gunpowder. And so periodically throughout the
what?
movie, periodically through the movie, they just explode. They'll just be walking along and
What is the name of this? I want to see this.
butterflies. And it's never gotten a
Butterflies?
US, it's never gotten a
Oh.
US release. And I love it. And I'm always I'm always checking like the Criterion or, some place to maybe
Wow.
might see. Cause anyway, it's this Turkish director. But there's tons of movies like that. Like, I think it was that same year, there was a movie called We Are Zombies.
I
This
think
movie
I
was
remember this one.
completely insane. It's not about zombies. It's about it's about this rock band, this child rock band and career or whatever. And at like a certain point, they get shrunken down and they get ingested. And like you go there, like it was insane. But like, you see these movies, and that's part of the fun
Wow.
that like will never be seen again.
Yeah.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
Anyway, okay, so I'll do my top 5 and then we maybe go over some of yours as well.
Sounds good.
So my number 4, my fourth favorite was Sorry Baby,
Mm.
which I just thought was so funny.
Mhm.
I was saying I felt like this movie was a female version of Napoleon Dynamite grown up, like
Oh,
old,
wow.
obviously, but it had that same kind of like
True.
deadpan kind of like sense of humor that I thought was really funny. And in a way, because in Napoleon Dynamite, like a lot of really sad things actually happens to him in the course of that movie, if you really think about it. Him
Yeah, of
like
course.
being abandoned and like just some kind of like he's really lonely. But because he's because of who he is and seeing the good things, like you don't feel that. But it's kind of similar here, whereas obviously this trauma happens to her, but because of who she is, and so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very clever original
Yeah.
film. Like,
Yeah.
the shot when the bad thing is happening and I think it's just his house. I was like, that's cool. That's good. This is what I told my friends after it is like, I like that it isn't just a clever original script. It's also interesting filmmaking and interesting ideas in the filmmaking in addition to the screenplay. And I like
Yeah.
that she has a lot to offer in addition to that. Because it's like her directing, her writing, and starring, and this is her feature debut. She's doing
Yeah.
like everything in this. I was like, damn, this is
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, it was. And I love Lucas Hedges. I just think he is so fun. He's such a good actor.
Yeah. I wanted more of him. Like when he
Yeah.
appears in this a couple times, I was like, this is not enough. He's good. Great. Like, give me the whole sequel with him and her together
Yeah.
and like having fun. I want to see that.
Yeah. Okay, my number 5 favorite was actually Lurker. Was
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite. I thought
I
this
think we
was
saw this together, right?
yeah. That was good. And I don't know, I thought it was it kind of had Gone Girl vibes to me. Of
Yeah.
being this very, very like disturbed individual, but he's the narrator. You think at the beginning that you're supposed to be kind of rooting for this guy, but like you start to realize, oh my gosh, like he is terrible. And I thought it was a very effective thriller and what it was trying to do.
Yeah. Obviously reminds me of Ingrid Goes West, which I think was like
Yes.
Sundance. I don't know
Excellent.
what 2016.
That was yeah.
That was
good
in
too.
similar kind of like fame obsession vibes, and this is also a film that is very hard to balance the humor with the like totally messed up horrible kind of things happening in it.
Yeah.
And you're like this is so uncomfortable. I shouldn't be watching this. This dude is a fucking nut. Sorry, the dude is crazy, but here we are like, oh, this is actually entertaining. And you're like, this is wild. I was really into it too. I wasn't expecting to be. I don't know why I didn't think it would be any good. And I wasn't sure if these two characters would work. And by the end I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Even though they're horrible, this is cool.
Yeah. So what's something you had on your list?
Yeah, my number one is actually a documentary, Folk Tales it's called.
Okay. So I saw this.
No,
Yeah.
I love Folk Tales. It to me it's kind of like I had no idea what to expect in it. It's set around this Norwegian folk school, and which is like the first things I thought it was in the past, but it's like modern day kids go to this folk school in like the Arctic North and Norway and learn about dog sledding and how to live their lives independently. And the way to me, it was like bring you into these kids' lives and also kind of beautifully shot examples of not only the dogs and the kids, but what they're going through in the Arctic North. I just was like overwhelmed with emotions in watching this. I just was so taken by it and fell
Why
really
was it called
deeply in love
Folk
with it.
Tales? I was very confused about that.
I think it's because the cheesy answer is like it's tales about kids at a folk school. Like but
I mean, they had that whole thing with the yarn and everything.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah,
just
I was
like,
gonna say
what is going on?
yeah.
I think it would have worked better as a short. It was a little drawn out for my taste, but I didn't hate it by any means. And I appreciated that the documentary had like a sense of humor about itself.
Yeah,
Like
of
it
course.
allowed the kids to be funny and silly and wasn't always like taking itself super seriously, which made it
Yeah.
more palatable, I think.
I think the whole point of it is simply to show the kids' growth over the semester, and I think that's the goal with it. Actually, the biggest criticism I have is that Norwegian tree yarn thing kind of. It's not that it doesn't work. It's like again, I get why they're doing it. It's just a bit clunky
Yeah,
when I would rather spend
was.
more time with the kids and the dogs because that's true. That like the real emotional core of it is the dogs and their relationship with the kids.
Yeah,
And
when that dog gets cancer, that was brutal.
yeah, as a dog lover, that was like I was like, oh, these dogs. I was actually so happy that they spent so much time literally like camera on the dog. Like we're gonna show you shots of the eyes, the dogs. Like give me more dogs.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So what next?
My other favorite one was Together. I don't know if you
I
saw
didn't
this.
get this one. I didn't see it.
Oh, I actually think you would dig it. And I can't give it away because it's a huge spoiler movie. So it's a body horror with Dave Franco and Alison Brie, who are a real life couple, and they play a couple in this film. And of course that works because their chemistry is literally natural and it's happening already. And the body horror element, which I will hint at but I won't give away, is that it's a film commenting on codependence in relationships and connections. And as the body horror is that they start to come a little bit together. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And it's handled in the most like, oh my God, I can't believe they pulled this off way. There's a lot of practical effects that are incredible in it, but there's also this like really cool horror mythology. And I think the reason that a lot of people connected with it is the humor is off the charts good. It's like hilarious. I was at the premiere screening at Eccles, and like the audience vibe that night was incredible because not only
Oh,
were
wow.
there were a few jump scares where like this woman screamed in the back so loud that the whole audience laughed at her screaming and then was laughing at the jokes as they were going on. It's like that's the moments I live for at Sundance where it all played together and just
Yeah.
rocked me. It was so good.
That's
So good.
cool. That's good. Well, let's talk about some of the not so good ones real quick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about By Design. Oh my gosh. Like
uh,
what?
This isn't even a film. Actually, I was reading like an interview with this woman who made this, and she's like, I don't make films, I make theater. And I was like, that's what you made. You made a theater, you made a stage play here, which is literally just like a bunch of weird chairs on a table and people interacting with them. And this is your movie. Like like this is I would even say should be a short film, but it should be like a 2-minute short film.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to see a good version of a movie about someone who becomes a chair, watch Suzumi, the anime film. That's
Great,
also about a man who becomes a chair and is actually a good film. This is so annoying on so many levels. This is everything that you dread at Sundance.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. And and I mean, never was I more tempted to put something on 2X because they had it, it was so odd in the virtual screening. They had a 2X option. I was like, that's so weird that Sundance would be giving their viewers that option. Like, I thought that was very strange. But anyway, I mean, this thing was just awful.
It was
awful.
I try never to walk out of films, and I mean I think this was on the virtual platform, so I couldn't have walked out. But at Sundance, I always try to be like, I'll stick through it just so I can comment on it. This one, I was like, after 10 minutes, I was like, really? Do I have to sit through the next 70 minutes of this? I don't even know who appreciates this. I hate to say this cliche. Who is this made for? Who is this made for? What is anyone getting out of this?
It reminds me of like late Jean-Luc Godard and his obnoxious, annoying films that were more about like giving a middle finger to everyone. And it's just like, yeah, you can do that, but don't you watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, so terrible.
If I had spent $35 on this, I would be super pissed.
Oh, yeah, there would be. Me too. Okay, then my other couple others I did not care for. So Endless Cookie was very disappointing to me. I mean, it was the only feature film animated of the whole festival. Wow. And I love many animated documentaries. I love Flea, of course. I love Waltz with Bashir. I love a lot of animated documentaries. Did a whole video about that a while back when we had the Piece by Piece. So you can make a good animated documentary. This just was aimless. It had no point. It felt like, I don't know. I like some of the animation was nice. Some of it looked poorly rendered and cheap. So it wasn't even like visually kind of satisfying. So that was, I thought, disappointing.
What is it even about? I never watched it because like the more I read about it, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. I don't
even know. Like it was just like kind of following these people. They're like traveling. And it really felt aimless. It didn't have a plot. It didn't have a narrative. It's just kind of like little scenes of them drinking coffee and them like I don't know.
Is there a cookie in it? As a cookie fan, is it even about cookies?
There is an endless cookie, but there.
Okay.
Yeah. But the other one that, well, I thought Bubble and Squeak was really annoying.
Yeah, it was a big letdown.
Yeah. But the one-to-one John and Yoko, that was I thought incredibly annoying. Because it's one thing, because they say at the beginning, they're like, John and Yoko love to watch television. So they want to give like the sense of you're watching television in 1970, whatever. And so a little bit of that of having a little ad here, a little newsreel here, a little kind of give a sense of time and place, I can understand. But there was so much padding in this darn thing. Like, you were just waiting for the actual musical numbers to come, and they just had stuff that made no sense. It was so poorly put together that you're like, why am I listening to this conversation of Yoko talking to her manager about what they're going to do next Wednesday? You know, like it wasn't substantive. It wasn't interesting. It didn't add anything. It was just like, it felt like a bunch of TikTok reels put together. And that doesn't make like a satisfying feature film. I don't know. I was very frustrated by it.
No, I'm glad you say this, because I liked it a little bit more than you, but I also kind of was like, I'm all just bored by it too.
Yeah, it was so boring.
I feel like the director's intention, especially with these time capsule docs, is to like make a point or reach one scene, right? To like have some emphasis, which is kind of what they're doing with John and Yoko. Like, there's this political kind of thing going on, and then they build the rest of the film around it. But as you're saying, like, it's built with all this archival footage that you're just like, what am I getting out of this? And they also have the classic Beatles problem, which is you can't really get the rights. You can't really do anything with the Beatles because it's the Beatles. So you kind of have to build all the stuff around the Beatles, which also isn't really that interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not.
It's like they must just have not had that many songs they could work with, or that I don't know. They just must not have had that many songs. So they're like, okay, how do we puff this up to make it a feature film? But they didn't need to make it nearly as long as it was. And so, you know, 100 minutes, it could have been at least 20 minutes shorter, and that would have been better. But yeah, it was not my favorite.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
And the last one that was, I think, disappointing for me was Jimpa.
Yeah, everyone hated it. I'm like the only one who liked it, but everyone else hated it.
I didn't hate it, but I thought that it made very confusing choices that were distracting to the overall effectiveness of the film. Like, I do not understand what they were thinking with these scenes with a child, a teenager, and a teenager and their mother in a tub together multiple times. Like, I don't know a teenager on the planet that would want to be in a tub with their mother. It was so weird. And there were other scenes that was just like, what is going on in this scene? It just made it feel stretched out and weird. And like, there was a weird scene where Olivia Colman's character kisses the assistant of her father, and it's like, what's going on? And then like the child sees this happening, but then nothing comes of that. It doesn't go anywhere. So I was like, what? And this character, like, I felt like, are they trying to say that, oh, like, bisexuality really is real, even though the dad doesn't believe in it? That was like their little moment there. It was just like, it was very well meaning. I think they were trying to do a lot of things, but it just made, I think, some poor choices.
Yeah, I agree. I as much as I like it, I do think that the director's problem was that she tried to do way too much in one film.
Yeah.
And like you kind of start out with this one character and you're focusing on them and you're like, oh, okay, they are interesting. But then it's also about the grandpa, and then it's also about like the kind of whole big idea of LGBTQ community and what they're doing. And I'm like, choose one thing or another, or kind of like be more focused, and then like you said, like little bits of things come up that don't go anywhere. And I enjoyed the emotion of it. I just didn't enjoy the storytelling in the way that I really wanted to. And I think that's the problem a lot of people had with it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, there were also the 2 cancer documentaries at the
I only saw
festival.
one, but yeah.
Andre is an Idiot, and then Come See Me in the Good Light, and both very similar. So that was a very strange doubleheader.
You watched both of them?
I did watch both of them. But they were both actually quite good. So
okay.
yeah.
It's Sundance is to me interesting because there's always these like themes they have where there's always
Yeah.
like a cancer film or two at the festival every single year. And I always think like I'm always like, oh, you can't. I get worried about criticizing them because people are always like, but it's important.
Well, right,
I'm like,
yeah.
I know it is, but that doesn't make the film good, like
Here's
automatically.
here's the truth: is you can criticize anything.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, like, if you can't criticize the film, it's probably propaganda. Because because anything should be allowed to be open to criticism.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The one I actually hate the most, I didn't see it at Sundance, but I've seen it last year in Venice, was April, which was another one in the spotlight section, which is about abortion. And I would not even, it's not even really about abortion. It's a part of it. I wouldn't even say that it is like helpful to the abortion cause. It's just like a film about it. And I absolutely despise this film. It is like, I actively hate it. Like, I think it's a terrible piece of crap film. And then like Sundance programmed it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're showing this, and people are gonna appreciate it. They're gonna think it like there's this weird monster character that kind of like I've actually read reviews from critics who are positive on the film, and even they can't explain the monster. They're like, I don't know why this monster is here, and I'm like, no one does.
Oh yeah,
but they're still like
terrible.
and I'm like, this film is awful. It is shot so poorly. It actually has no real impact. There's nothing of interest to it. It's like a student film level, like worst cinematography. It was like this camera that just like pans around for no reason, and you're like, "What is this crap?" I hate this film. I really hate April, and I'm sure someone's gonna be like, "That Alex is wrong" when they listen to this podcast.
Let us know in the comments. Yes, the one that I didn't like as much as most was Twinless. It's not a terrible film. I just felt like his character was unredeemable. This James Sweeney's character, he was what he does. It was a step too far to me when he's completely lying to this person about who he is, what he is, and I don't know. I just felt like the film wanted me to like him, I think, and I just thought he was a horrible person. Anyway, it was horrible what he was doing, and so I did not enjoy that one as much as most.
It's absolutely like when people will analyze it, I think that's a things a lot of people are going to say. They're going to be like, "Wait, this guy is the protagonist? There is no, I mean, not to give it away, there is really no redemption by the end either." And I like, the only reason I like it is because he's brave enough to, I assume, put himself on the screen that way because he's the writer, director, star. Yeah. And I think that process to him was probably, I guess, cathartic. But at the end of it, I'm like, what an asshole.
I needed a scene like in a real pain when he gets slapped. Like, you needed a scene where he gets like there's like some moment of catharsis for the audience, you know?
Of course. Yeah.
You know, and you just didn't. So I did not love that as much as most. I also was not a huge fan of The Thing with Feathers.
Oh, I didn't like it either. No.
So I am not a big fan of these bird as death movies. We've had Tuesday. I hated that. We had this. I hated it. Like, it's just not for me. Like, I'm not a big bird person. Even The Boy and the Heron, I was like, oh, I don't really love all these weird birds. But
there's also Bird, by the way.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm just not that big of a bird person, but I just it felt very heavy-handed to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I actually liked it better than Tuesday because I really disliked Tuesday. But this because I think the emotion of it worked better for me than Tuesday, with that being the mother-daughter, this being losing a spouse. I think was just a little, and a mother. But I still didn't like it. Not for me.
It's another one. I think it's a feature debut from this director. And I was just thinking, like, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing with the film. It starts out kind of like horror. There's like a couple weird jump scare
Yeah.
moments, and then it never really goes back to that, and it becomes the grief
Right.
story that grows with this bird character. And I'm like, what do you want this to be? Do you
Yeah.
want it to be scary? I know you're
I
like,
guess
working
it's
with
based on a
dark
play.
fans.
I guess
I think
there's
it's
a play.
a book. I think it's based on
Oh,
probably a
okay.
play too.
Yeah. And so I could see how it might work better as a play. But yeah, as a movie, I don't know. It just didn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
Let's see some others that I liked. I did like the Marlee Matlin documentary, and I think if you combine them as a double feature with Deaf President Now, because they were both at the same time period, it was kind of interesting to see those two together. That was a good double feature. I did like Train Dreams. It's definitely like slow, but I thought it was good. I liked that.
Did you see Opus?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
Did you like that?
No, it's not good.
No, it's not good.
I was like, I want to talk about it with you. You'd seen it, because it's like, I also don't want to give it away. So it's like, we need to only talk once you've seen it. But it was another big letdown.
Okay. Yeah. So I also I thought Plain Clothes was quite good.
I wasn't a big fan of that one, actually.
It was very tough to watch, but I think it was pretty effective at what it was trying to do. But what did you like about it?
The biggest thing that bothered me was this VHS style that it would cut back and forth to. And again, I'm like, stick to it. Like, I actually thought it would be better if he just did it full VHS the whole time. If you're gonna go back to that time and put us in that setting and use this little bit of style occasionally as part of, I guess thematically it's part of it, like, go for that. But the fact that it cuts to that and then goes back to regular, like, and I'm like, huh.
It wasn't but I needed the breaks. Unlike, for me, Nickel Boys, I couldn't do it. It made me sick to my stomach. I could not. Yeah, it was not for me. But yeah, I can see that. That's fair. So I think I think those are the big things. I did like the Selena doc. I liked a little doc called Middletown.
Yeah,
that I thought was really pretty entertaining. It's a little too long. They could trim it.
Yeah,
but it was fun. And because I went to high school in a town called Middletown, but it was Middletown, Maryland, not Middletown, New York.
Wow.
So, but it still felt, because it was like in the 90s, it felt kind of nostalgic for me. And then the Cutting Through Rocks. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Like, I have to admit, and maybe this is bad on my part, I really didn't think a woman like this was allowed in Iran. In modern Iran.
But to be honest with you, that's part of her thing. There are these scenes where she's getting shit from people, and you're like, I can't believe that, like, what was the thing? Oh, with them riding a motorcycle around. Like, the whole gist of her getting in trouble, it was like she went for a joyride with the girls on a motorcycle. I was like, that's it? This is crazy.
But like,
I can't believe
still, I was just kind of surprised that, like, a woman in current day Iran, so this is not like, there have been different eras of Iran, but that current day Iran, that a woman could be this outspoken, this riding on the motorcycle, this modern, it was surprising to me.
I think that's what's so cool about it. Is I'm glad they just showed how she was rebellious in a way that I hope was inspiring the other girls.
Yeah.
That you're like, wow, this is actually really going to make a difference in their lives, just because they just met this woman and they saw that it's possible and that she exists might influence one of them to also end up being that way. It may take time. It may take a couple more decades, but.
Yeah. Well, one last one that I want to talk about is Prime Minister, just because I just want to say that, like, I would just encourage people making these kind of documentaries is to, like, be like a tiny bit more brave. Like, this thing was such a puff piece for this woman. Like, it was, it wasn't a terrible movie. It was, like, on a surface level, it was, like, entertaining. But they didn't have a single person interviewed who disagreed with her or who was in opposition. Not one. And there was, like, a major conflict at the end that ended up being the turning point people against her in her country. And you would think that they were all like crazy people and she was like the persecuted, what, like, and it's like, maybe that's true, but how are we to know from like, why don't you interview one person from that side, and it just makes it feel like propaganda when people make these, and this is not the first. There's been so many of these kind of movies, whether it's about Michelle Obama or Hillary or whatever. Like, to me, it makes the characters less human when you do these puff pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it is a puff piece, really. It is.
Yeah, it is.
Like you said, I enjoy it, but I was like, this is such a basic presentation of her.
Yeah,
there is no deeper analysis.
She's perfect. Yeah.
I didn't even really learn anything about her. I was just like,
No.
oh, she just was the prime minister for a little while.
She was pregnant.
Then I left.
Yeah.
I do think that was I don't think it worked, but I do think the director's reason for making it was like, look, she had a kid while being prime minister, therefore she's super cool. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, but what about everything else going on?
Yeah. I mean, she seems like she is super cool, but like, I think you make her less cool when it's just so one-sided.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's more interesting when you have like a more nuanced, in my opinion. So that would be my advice to that. So there we go. I think we covered a lot of films, and there's of course many others. So if you got to watch any for Sundance, let us know in the comment section, and we would love to hear your thoughts. If you got to see anything, if you get to see any of them, let us know. And what do you have coming up next as far as festivals?
Well, I'm back home in Berlin, so we have the Berlin Film Festival next.
Okay.
I would be fully honest with you and say I'm not excited at all, but the most exciting part about it is we get to see Mickey 17.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah,
that's what I'm like all about. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going for.
I have South by Southwest coming up next month.
Oh, cool. You're going to it? Awesome.
I am. I'm a little nervous because last year I went and I got super bad allergies. Like I was so sick. And so I'm like, oh, should I try again? But I'm going to try one more time. And this time I'm really going to try to like be medicined up and be ready to go.
Good. Do they still have press screenings at South by?
Oh, well, yeah, they do. But
or do you usually go to like the main public screenings?
It's just the main public screenings, but you have like you have a pass so that you can go to kind of whichever ones you want.
Because last time I went was like 2010, like a long time ago. So I'm curious.
It's like kind of like having the locals pass is sort of what it is.
Oh, so you just go to any screening at any time? Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Even the premieres, but you still have to like wait in line and you have to, so, but you also have to get I forgot, you have to, the morning before you have to sign up to get one of the spots. And so if you miss it, if you don't get one of the spots, then you have to wait in line and hopefully get in.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, a waiting list. But anyway, so let's just hope and pray that I don't get sick like I did last year, because that was brutal. But anyway, so I got that coming up as my next one. And
cool.
Yeah. So there we go. Again, let us know what you think of all the things we talked about. And if people want to follow you on social media and your letterbox, how do they do that?
I'm at First Showing on pretty much everything. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky. I'm Alex B, but everywhere else First Showing and firstshowing.net.
Good. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure that you're following me over at Hallmarkies Podcast. Lots of good stuff going on over there. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support everything that I'm doing. And we try to give really good perks. Like we have our watch alongs, and Q&As. We just had writer director Emily Ting on, and she did Girl Hunts Boy and other films. She's really, really fun. And we had a great Q&A Q&A with her. So we have really good perks for the patron. And then we have the merch store where you get fun designs, and we have a brand new Dashery store as part of the merch store. So check that out. And so thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all later.